for it. But let's talk about the big game, the monster game of the entire regular season. That is number 2 Ohio State at number 3 Michigan. Both teams showing up 11-0, Big Fox, noon Eastern, the game. I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I didn't think we were going to be able to see this once again. And we got this last year and we were spoiled by it, I think, because 2 11-0 teams that were good, one blows out the other, and yet that one team still gets in. That's how much we think of Ohio State and Michigan. That's what they mean to the sport. The other thing about this is we could not ask for more storylines going into Ohio State, Michigan. For somebody that's got my job, getting to sit behind a microphone and pontificate about this sport I love, this is manna from heaven. Because I'm looking at a Jim Harbaugh who was asked straight up and down, hey, what would you say the respect level is for your colleagues over at Ohio State? And that man did everything but acknowledge that they got a coaching staff at Ohio State in his response. It's also a man who was forced to answer questions as the head coach at the University of Michigan, knowing damn well he's not going to be on the sideline in Ann Arbor for the game, which means he not only missed the 1,000th win for Michigan dating back to 1897, he's likely to miss perhaps just the second time in 25 years for which Michigan has beaten Ohio State in 3 consecutive years. On top of all of this, we got to talk about why Jim Harbaugh is not going to be on the sideline for the game. And that goes back to the sign-stealing scandal for which Michigan has finally taken ownership of what Connor Stallions did and how others were orchestrated and part of this scheme to steal opposing team signs. And that is why Jim Harbaugh was hit with the 3-game suspension that is going to see him through the end of this game, but perhaps get him back for any postseason competition they're going to have, including the Big Ten championship game. I think most Ohio State fans would love to see Jim Harbaugh on that sideline because they don't want no asterisk next to what they think is going to be a win. But I would be remiss if I did not say Michigan is favored to win this game. The line is 3.5 to Michigan and then 45.5 as the over-under. It's been 1,456 days since Ohio State last beat Michigan. And we're talking about Justin Fields coming off the bench for chugging off, rolling to his left on a bad knee to go and get that win in 2019. It's been that long. I also need to add in here that the Michigan team that tripled up Ohio State, 95, 96, 97, that group of players, went on to, as you know, win a share of the national championship. And this team, this 2023 edition of Michigan, is a better scoring team and almost as good a scoring defense. They are really outstanding, giving up just 9.3 points per game this season. You're not really scoring on that defense, even if we're going to get into how the offense has not necessarily been the kind of offense they had last year. But the last year's win also, 45-23 for Michigan, was the largest margin of victory for Michigan in Columbus since 1978. And the largest margin of victory for Michigan since 1993, period. Like, they were absolutely on one, and that was a game for which Ohio State expected to get one back because they felt like they got embarrassed and run on in a cold, dreary day for which Aiden Hutchinson showed up and made himself a Heisman finalist and then got dealt with without Blake Corum on the football field. That's just a terrible look if you are Jim Knowles' defense, and it feels like they took it personally. It feels like this defense has been built primarily to stop whatever Michigan is going to do on Saturday. It is a defense that does not give up big plays, the kind of which Donovan Edwards was doing the damn thing, Cornelius Johnson was doing the damn thing, Roman Wilson is capable of. We're talking about a defense that has not given up an explosive play or 40 yards of more all year. We're talking about a defense that has allowed one opponent to score 17 and nobody else to score anywhere near it. We're talking about a defense that tackles. We're talking about a defense that turns you over. They fly to the football. They are going to tackle what's in front of them, and you're not going to get over the top of them. If you are Ohio State, you're looking forward to this game because your safeties get to play downhill, because you know a Jim Harbaugh coach football team wants to run the football. So if you force J.J. McCarthy to throw it, and he ain't looked great the last couple of weeks, you wouldn't feel pretty good about your chances of stopping Michigan's offensive attack. It's also a rivalry that just gets into your bones. It dates back to 1897, and they had played this game 104 out of the last 105 years. The one year they did not play this game is the COVID year, 2020. Michigan had to pull out of the game. And I genuinely believe that that game not being played is the best possible thing that ever happened to Michigan football. The reason I say that is Jim Harbaugh went 2-4 in 2020. Had they played the game, Ohio State was ready. They were coming in flying, and they wanted every piece of Michigan. They wanted to play this game in the worst way. They end up winning the Big Ten championship. Then you get to look around. Jim Harbaugh is made to eat an incentive-laden contract that was kind of humiliating on its face. He's interviewing for jobs with, say, the Minnesota Vikings and not getting them. There's lots of conversation about whether or not this is the guy to lead the program simply because he can't beat Ohio State, and now they had lost twice as many games as they played, even in such a short span of time. Then you get the run. You get a team that has lost just 3 games in the last 3 years and won 36. You're getting 2 years of some of the best Michigan football we have ever seen. Had that game been played and had Ohio State won it, I'm not sure we're even talking about Jim Harbaugh being the head coach at Michigan and one of the sancted men at Michigan, getting to operate as he does, as he pleases, and really getting a program to run in the same direction. Like, I say this often, but I think it bears repeating. The way that those players and those coaches want to fight for him is uncommon. We can think what we want about how just kind of weird Jim Harbaugh can seem out here with the Ted Lasso quotes, but also the Yellowstone quotes, taking his time, really giving you what I think is an unorthodox answer. But when it comes time to actually go block and tackle, they want to go for him. You heard Sharon Moore be very emotional in acting head coach, getting that win against Penn State, being just a little bit laid back in the win against Maryland, but you could see the emotion was still there. The offensive line has taken the suspension personally, so it has the running back room, and those are the 2 things you really need to get after if you're going to go beat Ohio State. You need to be able to run the ball on them, and you need to show a Blake Corum and a Donovan Edwards that we haven't seen a whole lot of so far this year. And the reason I say that is we're talking about Blake Corum being ho-hum. And that is a man who's rushed for 20 touchdowns this year. He leads the FBS. We're also talking about a Donovan Edwards that hasn't quite shown us the kind of explosion that he could show even in 2021, let alone 2022. We're talking about an offensive line that is being questioned by the Go Blue because we went into this going, they got 7 guys that are going to probably be drafted in next year's NFL draft on that offensive line. They have packages where they get all 7 offensive linemen on the line of scrimmage and try to bully you. And yet and still, I've got some folks that believe we haven't seen their best football yet. We haven't seen Blake Corum's best football yet. Now is the time. And Blake, I think, is fired up for this precisely because he got all of 2 touches in this game before blowing out his knee and probably had the Heisman within his grasp had he had the game that Donovan Edwards had. He's come back, he said, not for the individual accolades, but to win championships. I think that last year they were really hindered by not having him against Texas Christian, let alone the Big Ten title game. They're going to get him for this game. Oh, he's going to show up healthy. He's going to show up fresh. He hadn't been touching the ball as often as he might because they've been blowing people out up until the last couple of weeks. Again, I got to go back to what Jim Harbaugh has done. It's not just 36-3 and developing Blake Corum. It's 2 Big Ten titles. It's 2 wins against Ohio State. It's 2 trips to the college football playoff. And my favorite, a defensive Heisman finalist, which in and of itself is like winning the Heisman Trophy for me because I don't think Heisman voters acknowledge that defense even gets played in this sport that I love. And even on top of that, we got even more storylines. I would point you to a story by my friend Michael Cohen, who's also covers the Big Ten really well for us at Fox Sports. He wrote a feature about Kyle McCord and J.J. McCarthy that I encourage you to go read and look up. But there's one anecdote that I really love in this that really kind of solidifies where we're at. Kyle McCord's dream school was Michigan. J.J. McCarthy's dream school was Ohio State. They show up in Elite 11. expecting, to be recruited and or committed to one of those two places, except it went the other way. But as these things happen at the opening at Elite 11, families meet, they bond. Hey, you got an outstanding quarterback that I got to travel all over the country with. You get to know the same people. It's kind of like being on a travel ball team. And they come to find out, oh, man, we got all this Ohio State gear when JJ has committed to Michigan. We got all this Michigan gear when Kyle is committed to Ohio State. And the moms got together and mailed each other the gear. We're going to get into more of this on our live tailgate this Saturday. Well, I'll be joined by Michigan running back Chris Howard and Buckeyes running back Beanie Wells talking about this rivalry and how these relationships develop. It also reminds me just what it means for high school football players to be able to commit to places like Ohio State and Michigan. My favorite story being Chris Spielman, who grew up an Ohio State fan, whose father was a rabid Ohio State fan, who wanted and then took a visit to Michigan, told his daddy, I think I want to go to Michigan. And his daddy said, no, I've had enough. You're going down the road to Ohio State, you traitor. I've had enough of this. I let you have your experience. Now you're going to go be a Buckeye, because that's what this rivalry means for them, right? We make jokes about John Kerry rooting for Michigan and rooting for Ohio and Ohio State. And yet and still, here we are with even more to fill this rivalry with. I'd also add on the field, it's going to be outstanding. Like, I am excited. I get to see JT Tuimoloau, Mike Hall. I get to see Jack Sawyer going up against this really great offensive line at Michigan. And I'm asking myself, not just if Michigan has what it takes to get the three-peat in Ann Arbor, or if Ryan Day can get this much-needed win against Michigan, but what does this mean for Sharon Moore? I mean, the Broyles Award semifinalists came out earlier this week, and you should know that I'm a voter and I take it very seriously because I believe that award is really important to acknowledging the rising stars in our sports. And the guys that win it usually go on to be outstanding head coaches in one way or another. And Sharon and defense coordinator Jim Knowles are semifinalists, but Sharon Moore is going to be the acting head coach for the third game. He's basically doing the job, okay? And Jim Harbaugh has said Sharon probably has the best chance of being a Power 5 head coach. I mean, he's probably got 4 guys on that staff that could be head coaches next year, right? To say nothing of just what kind of offensive line coach Sharon has been with those Joe Moore award-winning lines. But I don't think that Sharon Moore's going to coach a bigger game in his life. He might never coach a bigger game in his life than this one this weekend because of the 11-0, because of number 2 versus the number 3, because it's not just a chance to play for a Big Ten title, but a de facto play-in game for the college football playoff. Because as much as I love Iowa football, I know some people got their own feelings about it. We expect the Big Ten East champ to show up and take that championship once again. And the winner of this game has won the last 6 Big Ten championships. It's really been about Ohio State and Michigan, even as we have divisions. And the divisions, thankfully, are going away, which means that Penn State might actually have a road into the Big Ten championship for the first time in some years. But once again, I'm overwhelmed by what this could mean for so many guys that play on both sides and so many guys that coach on both sides. Like Jim Knowles could walk into a head coaching job after this. Brian Hartline could walk into a head coaching job after this. This is a game that you don't put on your resume because everybody saw it. You're evaluated on this game. That's going to be true for Kyle McCord and J.J. McCarthy as well. I'm really interested to see if J.J. McCarthy summons the kind of performance that we know him capable of. Because if this is on his arm to go win, I don't feel good about that. I don't feel good about that because it was on his arm to go win against Texas Christian, and he threw the other team the ball, right? I don't trust it because they didn't really let him throw the ball against Penn State. And when he did get to throw the ball against Maryland, he didn't look great. Now, granted, Roman Wilson went out in that game, right, with what we think is a concussion. While he's day-to-day, concussions and the test you got to pass, he might not be able to go, right? But Tyler Moore needs to be a guy for him. Cornelius Johnson needs to emerge. He needs to continue to hit Colston Loveland. And more importantly, he needs the run game to do what it does. I understand that Blake Corum is getting 87 a game. That ain't enough. That ain't enough. You're going to need to go for 125, 130 because the team that outrushes the other team in this game wins it. As a matter of fact, you check the results. The team that has rushed for more yards has won this game every year dating back to 2000. That's how important running the football is against both Ohio State and Michigan. And Kyle McCord, while he has Marvin Harrison Jr., who I think is the best college football player in America, and they got a rapport that goes back to St. Joe's Prep in Philly, he's also got a guy that is being slept on nationally in TreVeyon Henderson. TreVeyon Henderson is averaging 125.5 yards from scrimmage per game, and he's only gotten stronger since becoming the feature back. It seemed like Mayan Williams going out with the injury, which hurt that running back room and hurt Ohio State, has been pretty good for him because he's getting touches. And I asked Beanie Wells about this. I said, do you change your mentality a little bit when you know it's not running back by committee, when you know you're the guy? And this is a dude who also played in the game when both teams were 11-0 behind Antonio Pittman. And he said, yeah, you prepare differently. Your mentality is different. You are really gearing up to carry the load for your team. And some guys really do rise to the level of that occasion, right? I think Maurice Clarett is another great example of this at Ohio State. Ezekiel Elliott, J.K. Dobbins. I think TreVeyon Henderson can really put himself in that group because it's a guy who we all know has ability. We all know that he can be a Heisman caliber tailback, but we haven't seen that because he's been injured at times. And frankly, he's been hit and miss. But boy, when he hits, he goes all the way. Just ask Notre Dame. He hit him one time, and that was enough. And that's probably the reason why I'm going to take TreVeyon Henderson over a Blake Corum in this game, because I think Trey can hit you for a home run, and nobody's going to need a home run more than Ohio State. If they get a 2-score lead, that's going to be really difficult for Michigan to overcome because that's a team that absolutely needs to stay on schedule. They need to score on every possession they have, and they need to get 6 more often than they get 3. I think that knowing you have TreVeyon Henderson behind you, knowing you got Marvin Harrison Jr. out there and Emeka Egbuka and Cade Stover, you got to feel good if you're Kyle McCord. Now, neither one of these guys, I think, is going to play in a bigger game than this one. JJ got to play in it last year, but again, man, you played in it, you won a Big Ten championship game, but is this the one where you actually get to separate? Because it's one thing to beat Ohio State as the starting quarterback. It's another to beat them twice. Like, we're talking about C.J. Stroud, a player I love, right? A guy that I love, who might end up winning NFL MVP. Certainly is going to win NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, who didn't beat Ohio State. And that is the thing people say. When Terrell Pryor was being vilified, he would say, I beat Michigan, right? I just, my goodness, if you are the dude that can go do that, yeah, you don't pay for drinks in Ann Arbor, and everybody knows your name forever because this game means that much to so many people. Which leads to what I think is going to be the X factor of the game. I kind of touched on it, but I think we need to really hammer home the defenses in this game are going to be instrumental. They are the first and second best scoring defenses in college football. I don't know when we could last say that about Ohio State and Michigan. It's been that long because both of those defenses operating at the level that they are operating now at this moment in the season, really tough to put your finger on. And I need to outline it because Michigan defense is allowing just 9 a game and Ohio State's averaging 9.3 a game. Who's going to blink first, right? I mean, we're talking about a game that could end up a lot like we saw Ohio State versus Notre Dame early in the year, just low scoring, where who's going to flinch, and then it comes down to a goal line stand or a goal line get, and which acting head coach is going to make the best decision, who's going to make the right decision. One of the things that we talk about so many times in these games are, what did your coaches do? James Franklin, who doesn't necessarily make the best in coaching decisions according to Penn State fans, that might be his Achilles heel. Meanwhile, last year, Ohio State damn near beat damn near beat Georgia. And the reason they didn't is because Kirby Smart saw a trick play in the offing, call timeout. Which one of these head coaches can do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's right there. And I hope that Ryan Day has been able to act on the lessons that he said he learned from last year, which is around this time of year, he was getting stretched too thin. He was not really able to focus on being both head coach and the play caller that he needed to be. And he needed to spread that around a little bit so they could be better suited for the game itself. Understanding that his legacy as head coach at Ohio State is around this game. One of the things that really just galls me to no end, but I don't get to argue with because I'm accepting the sport as it is and not as I want it to be, is that Ryan Day could win more than 50 games, lose just 6, and people continue to say, I don't know, dog. He ain't been able to beat Michigan. He might not be the guy. I asked Beanie Wells about this. I said, do you think Ryan Day's job is in jeopardy if he loses this game? And he didn't quite know, which tells me everything. Because me, as an Oklahoma fan, cool, you lost to Texas. It happens. You lost to Texas 3 times in a row. It happens. Did we win 11 games? Did we win 12? Does it feel good to beat Texas? You damn right it feels good to beat Texas. I love beating Texas. I probably love beating Texas more than Ohio State fans love beating Michigan, if I'm being quite honest about it. But I'm not going to turn around and say I need a new head coach because we only won 11 games and we didn't beat our rival. Meanwhile, there's one game played each season in the state of Ohio, and it's this one. And that sucks, but that's also what Ryan Day is signed up for. And when I asked him about this at the Big Ten Media Day, he said, I understand. That is the job. That is how you're evaluated. I accepted that. So for the guys that continue to tell me that Ryan Day was born on third base, I would also point to Jim Harbaugh, who probably stole second and third, depending on how you feel about the signs. I could not be more impressed with how he has carried this, because there are times for which my brain would combust, and I probably would lose my temper in private about the way that my career has been talked about in winning football games. Again, Ohio State operates unlike anybody else, and that's what you sign up for when you take that job. The loser of this game, as I said, could absolutely make the playoff, but it's going to be tough to do that again if you get blown out. It's going to be a really exciting game. I can't wait to do it. Once again, live tailgate on the Twitters, on the YouTube. I'll be hosting alongside Beanie Wells and Chris Howard, who are going to tell us some fantastic stories, give us some in-game analysis, and we're going to have some really cool tricks and tips to give you as we end up talking about this game for the better part of, 4 hours. Really love doing this stuff. If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to the #1 college football show on YouTube, the Fox Sports app, or wherever you get your podcast.